This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
All right. Well, that was 47 speaking himself as we gather here together, all the hammerheads across the fruited plains at the Hammer Podcast.
That's right. Undisclosed location.
Yes, the Hammer headquarters is an undisclosed location. But now look, friends, with all the holiday excitement, I forgot to mention that we here at the Hammer headquarters were bestowed with a very special gift. That's right, very special, huge gift. It is a golden hammer.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, this is the golden hammer, and it will be displayed prominently here in the Hammer headquarters. So we're excited to have that, and just excited to be back after a long 168 hours.
That's right. A few things have taken place since then in our culture.
A few things.
Yeah, we probably ought to talk a little bit about it, huh?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's so much current issues, current
events. We call them. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's the word. Current events going on. We figured it'd be a good time to dive into that. But just in light of the cold open, we wanted to just touch on that. The fact that President Trump would make it the official policy of the U.S. government that there's only two genders. And I think if you would go in on their website, the way they define that is very specific and from conception.
Yeah.
But, how does that relate to what you preached, a couple weeks back on choosing the best gospel candidate?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's remarkable that we're even living in a time, right, where that would make news.
It really,
right?
Yeah. Has there ever been a time?
Right, a government official would get up and say, "Hey, there are only two genders." Like, isn't this like one of those obvious things?
Yeah. And it was funny on the video. It shows, President Biden and Kamala. They didn't stand and clap for that declaration.
Right. Well, we can excuse him. He doesn't. Who even knows? Mr. Weekend at Bernie's, what's going on? Her, on the other hand, no, she was probably cackling somewhere. But anyway, I mean, it's remarkable that you even have to say that, right?
It really is.
But you asked a question. Say that again, how that relates.
Yeah, how does that relate to what you had preached a couple weeks ago on us as Christians voting for and picking the best gospel candidates?
Right, okay, yeah. So a few months ago, actually, right? Yeah, when we, leading up to the election and stuff, we made it clear that, Jesus was not on the ballot, and that unlike some people, we're not going to suggest that Trump is saved.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then on the other hand, unlike other people, we're not going to act like, his policies are, equal in terms of depravity with Biden's.
Right.
And so, I get this Lynchburg thing. Everybody's got this.
The Lynchburg
cough
virus.
that won't leave. So,
yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So, I mean, so what we clearly said, right, was we would rather the candidate that would come out and issue a statement like this.
Yes.
And make this a policy. Now, somebody's going to come along and say, well, just because he said that, that's not going to make transgender people not be transgender. It's not going to make transgender activists stop trying to push their agenda. Okay, yeah. Well, what would you rather?
Yeah. It's
right?
crazy. Yeah.
Would you like so? But this was my point, right? That the whole point was. Now, what I was most concerned with was which candidate would allow the gospel for the most freedom of the proclamation of the gospel, because that's what saves.
Right.
Right now, but again, I said that's also going to be the same candidate that has the best policy on saving the lives of the unborn.
Right.
Right. And certainly is going to have the same best policy on, in this case, the genders.
Yes, the genders
Okay.
and freedom of speech, right? Censorship, all of that stuff is what opens the path for the gospel.
Right. So when I see this as somebody in the ministry, as a shepherd, that's not for sale.
That's right.
Although you can make an offer, we can talk about it, but nobody's ever offered. Nobody's ever offered. But
we're not for sale.
That's right. But look, the whole thing is, as a shepherd, when you preach and when you try to lead sheep and you try to be faithful before the Lord, and when you say things like, some of the things that were said in that series, leading up to the election, and then now you have statements like this, it's great to be able to point and say, yep, see, guys, this is what I was talking about.
Yeah, it's vindication.
Right. This is what I was talking about. Now, again, and we'll talk about this later. Does this mean our society's been transformed? No.
By no means.
Okay. But again, what would you rather have?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's crazy. And then, it even goes to show they were at the National Cathedral, right? And the bishop woman got up and was railing against President Trump and Vice President Vance in regards to all the transgender stuff. Right? Clearly the culture still has a long way to go, but this puts us in the game, right, with our best foot forward, with options and opportunities to speak the truth in a very dark world.
That's right. And just setting the tone where we have a culture and we have, a regime now out in front saying, look, no, there's male and female.
That's right.
Right? Really two sexes. I don't even like talking gender, as I said before, is a grammatical term.
Yes, that's right.
We don't have any neuter, okay? You're male or female, so the sexes, but it's bigger than just he comes out and makes a statement. It's setting a tone, and to where you're going to have a lot of kids who before all they were hearing was the other.
Yes.
And so to be cool or to fit in or this or that, or they have a teacher who is feeding them stuff. And so they say, I'm going to identify as trans, right? And I'll take some hormone blockers. I'll get the surgery.
It's reversible, right? It's
reversible.
Right,
exactly. So this sort of rhetoric from the president and this statement, we don't know in God's providence how many children that's going to save from, who would otherwise take the hormone blockers, get the surgeries, these sort of things, right? So that is a good thing for culture. That is a good thing for society. And again, this comes back to the whole, what we talked about before with the Cyrus principle, right? I will take Cyrus over Satan.
Amen.
All
Amen.
right?
Preach it all day.
So,
well, and then what? He's just removed the basically abortion
that's right.
element of the Home Health and Security Department, the .gov.
Yeah.
They've taken that away.
That's right. Yeah, he shut down the pro-abortion reproductive rights.gov HHS website. I've got it right here in front of me. That's why I'm reading it so eloquently.
Yes, good.
As only we can do, because this is excellent in pastoral broadcasting.
That's right. With the golden hammer.
That's right. We got the golden hammer now.
Yeah.
But so again, that's a great thing, right?
Right.
And again, here we are just a couple days in, and this is why, again, we voted for him. This is why we said to the people, without saying directly, this is who you should vote for. It was pretty evident who we were saying not to vote for, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And anybody who had, has any common sense knew who the best gospel candidate was and who we were talking about. Now, does that mean he's not going to say something or use rhetoric or whatever that we would disagree with later today or tomorrow? Yeah, no. But again, we're not among those. We're not Robert Jeffries. We're not among those people running around saying, that Donald Trump is a born-again believer in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Okay?
That was the tactic of the old moral majority, right? We don't need to say they're saved for Christians to coalesce around them and say, no, this is a better option.
Right.
Cyrus
Which is all
over
we said.
Satan. Yeah, that's right.
Because we're praying, right? 1 Timothy 2, we're praying for his salvation, just as we are all the former presidents.
Yes.
Since I've been in the ministry anyway, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different presidents.
2 regimes, though.
Yeah,
we won't go there. We won't go there.
We won't go there. But anyway, so and we've prayed from the pulpit, for the salvation of all of them and their families, and we'll continue to do that for Donald Trump.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Well, and speaking of breaking news, the pardons seems to be a pardoned party.
Yeah.
Right, literally hours before President Trump was sworn in, President Biden pardoned his whole family. He pardoned the January 6th committee, Fauci.
Yeah, I think he pardoned a bunch of future turkeys for Thanksgiving Day, maybe a few trees. Yeah.
Blankets.
I was going to ask I'm not even aware that I've really done anything wrong, but I was going to ask for a pardon.
I mean, if he's giving out pardons, as a free-for-all. Well, and then I think, Adam Schiff was saying he didn't want to take it, but maybe he had to take it, and whatever. There's pardons going all over the place. And I think Snerdley's got a clip of what Joe Biden and Kamala were saying about pardons, I think before they were even elected.
4 years ago.
Yeah, 4 years ago.
This was 4 years ago.
Snerdley, can you cue that up for us?
Yeah, let's listen to this. Interesting.
All right, so this is context, right?
Yeah.
This is before 2020, before he had been elected president. It was still the campaign trail.
Well, in that case, it would have been 2019, but right? Or was it?
No,
2020.
And then he sits in 21.
Right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. COVID messed everybody up.
It
It's
does,
okay.
It took some of my memory, too.
Thanks, Anthony. Anthony. All right, here we go. Snerdley.
President Trump is reportedly considering a wave of preemptive pardons. Does this concern you? All these preemptive pardons?
Well, it concerns me in terms of what kind of precedent it sets and how the rest of the world looks at us as a nation of laws and justice. You're not going to see in our administration that kind
All right, Snerdley.
To pardons.
There we go.
Nor are you going to see in our administration the approach to making policy by tweets. It's just going to be a totally different way in which we approach the justice system.
All right, so this was
Trump is.
All right,
this was Biden saying 4 years ago that he would. We're not. We wouldn't do
Never.
pardons like he. And then he, in fact, is the one giving all these preemptive pardons. It's unbelievable, right?
It really is unbelievable.
And I mean, I had a good talk with one of my children just the other day because we were talking about this and just justice versus what is unjust, and the fact that that God alone is the only one that can dish out true, perfect justice, and He shall do so. So any injustice that we see will all be fixed when it's said and done. There will be no such thing as ultimate injustice, right?
Yep. When the man comes around, He will deal out justice.
Yeah. So the Lord will take care of all of that. But
I think it goes to show, like, the narrative arc, and there's a lot of Christians out there that want to take mainstream media at face value, right? But they're always trying to control the narrative, and they're trying to shape it in such a way that this is now okay, right? It's okay that Biden's doing these preemptive pardons that go back to 2014. There's no problem here.
Yeah.
When it was Donald Trump that was going to do it, it was such an evil, horrible thing, and he's an evil, horrible person.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they're always trying to manipulate what all of us in real Linda, right?
Yeah.
The real normal people think, and why it's so important for us as Christians to be discerning and realize that the mainstream media, as Maharashi used to say, is the drive-by media. Like they just drive by and create chaos. They're never actually trying to communicate truth.
Yeah, that's right.
It's our job to try and sort through that and find truth.
Yeah, that's right. And obviously you have to begin to ask yourself, right, why do these people, again, we talked about validation, and when I say what I'm about to say, this isn't like we're going to pat ourselves on the back, but I do think when you preach, when you lead, right, when God has, given you sheep and has put you over them, you have a responsibility.
Yeah.
And when you get things wrong, say, got it wrong. But at the same time, when you're on the right track, you give God the credit.
Yes.
But point it out, right? And so all of this just to me validates everything we said and did through COVID.
Yeah, like with our Righteous Resistance series and the things that we were saying and doing then.
Right, because, it was at that point that we realized there's a lot of shenanigans going on. And now what do? We have none other than somebody like Anthony Fauci getting a pardon. Now, why does he need a pardon?
Yeah, all the way back to 2014, if I'm hearing the sources right.
Right, yeah, I don't know those details.
It's definitely a longer period of time than just like last year.
Which, if it did go back to 14, if you've been reading up, paying attention, I guess that would cover the gain of function.
Which President Obama told him to stop, and they didn't stop.
Yeah,
correct.
So, and, there are a lot of people, I don't know because I haven't researched it enough. I have a hunch they're right, but this whole gain of function stuff and the COVID virus and all this, it's Fauci could be. I mean, I've heard some people say he actually ultimately is responsible for more death than Hitler.
Yeah.
And, that's an interesting thought.
It's a very interesting thought.
But,
Nuremberg 2.0, but we'll not go there.
Well, right. But the point is, as Christians, when we saw, hey, there's some shenanigans going on here. We called it out. Now, did we know at that particular point in time in 2020, did we know that there was such a thing as gain of function? No. Now, did we know or have a pretty good idea that, that this leaked from a lab?
It wasn't a wet market?
Yes. Yes.
From bats?
Right. Yes, we knew that, unless somebody was dumb enough to think, foolish enough, naive enough to think that, well, China wouldn't do this. Are you kidding me? These are the same people that before that were killing off the Uyghurs.
Yes, that's right.
Not to mention certain people kept disappearing.
Well, that was just because they
after
got lost.
COVID came out. Yeah, right.
They just got lost.
So,
that's all.
But it's like, oh, you can't talk about that as a pastor. You can't. Why?
Yeah.
Really? What? So
what does shepherding even mean?
Right. Well, it's because some people have. Again, we've talked about this before. It bears repeating this week. That there are these people that even though they'll say they don't, they really do. They have this compartmentalized life.
Yeah.
There's the Bible, there's Christianity, and then there's everything else in the world, and the two don't come together.
Ever. Yeah.
And they think they're more spiritual by saying that.
Well, I mean, they're the ones, and they say, well, no, that doesn't happen. No. Hammerheads,
Absolutely.
we know. It manifests itself when someone says, hey, that's not a gospel issue.
Mm-hmm.
And as a pastor, you should only speak about gospel issues.
Right.
Right? And so then they try and blur the language in such a way that makes pastors feel like, oh, wow, I can't ever speak about anything that's happening in the culture because, well, if it's not directly tied to the gospel, then it's not my job to speak on.
That's right. And look, we are, again, thankful to the Lord because the discernment we had was from the Lord, from his word and prayer, right? The Spirit led us, but to have, but I'm thankful now that we did have a few things to say about, hey, this vaccine is not a vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
You can take it. It's totally up to you.
Right.
But it's not actually a vaccine, and we talked about, online, them changing the actual definition, Webster's and all that, of a vaccine.
Yeah.
We talked about, the efficacy of the mask and this and that. Now, and we even said, we were concerned about kids in school and development and stuff. We didn't say a lot about it because we didn't know how it was going to play out. Well, wouldn't you know? Right? It really messed up a lot of children developmentally at the youngest ages, in kindergarten, first grade, these sort of things, right? But I'm also thankful that we stood up and said something. It was horrible that there were people who were dying and family members were not allowed to see them and be with them.
Yeah, they had to die alone in hospitals.
And all of this because of a political game, not to save lives. Okay, that's sick. Something's wrong with that. And if Christians can't stand in the gap and point it out and say it, something's wrong.
Yeah.
What use are we then?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think even more so, like what some of those Christians did is to make it a gospel issue. They then took the other side, right? In the name of love your neighbor, we're telling you to, follow all of these.
Yeah, and of course we've talked about that ad nauseum, right? But those were the people that I think most of those were pseudo Christians.
Yeah, but they're the ones that
they were not true believers. They were the Russell Moores of the pack.
And David French Fry.
He's totally out of the closet, and everybody can see what he is and all that now. But that's right. And we'll say a little more about that. But you've got the sponsor coming up here.
Yes, it is a sad state of affairs. But yeah, Snerdley's got me queued up. We've got to keep paying the bills here at the Hammer Podcast. So today's episode has been brought to you by The Truth. It always wins. The Truth. It always wins.
Amen.
And we're also, it's Mike Lindell. He's got the flannel sheets. He's actually selling the crosses now with his recovery network. And so you can go onto the website and they're selling crosses.
Does he have gloves yet? Because it's cold out, man.
Yeah, there might be some My Gloves on the My.
It wouldn't matter anyway. I'd lose them in a day. I take gloves. I have no idea where they're at the next day.
Yeah.
Usually if I get them with me in the morning to the car, by the afternoon I don't know where they're at. But anyway,
it's definitely a cold season.
Yes,
at this time for sure. So
yeah.
All right. Well, so look, in light of all the positive things that have been happening, right? There's a lot of positive momentum. I mean, we're only a couple days in, not even a full week of 47, but there's still a lot to be done for Christians in this nation.
We've got a lot of work to do, which is
Let's talk about that, because it would be easy to think, yes, Trump won, and then now we can sit back, relax, watch the Super Bowl, and not worry about anything else.
Yeah. Well, football's dead to me. I'm not going there, but
R.I.P. Ravens. R.I.P.
Yeah. Andrews, what a joke. Can't catch you. All right, anyway, couldn't catch a cold right now. But anyway, look. So, look, there's a lot.
There's a lot of hammerheads rooting for Taylor Swift's team.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot, that believer stuff. Look, we have to be faithful.
Yes.
Is the bottom line, right? We just simply have to be faithful. That's going to be that means being courageous, being bold, continue to preach the gospel, continue to share Christ. The great thing is, we should be, be able to keep our freedoms to do that. A little bit longer maybe here, but I'm thankful that we have the opportunity to do it. But yeah, for any believers to just think, the guy I voted for won. Now we can, no. There's no rest.
Yeah.
Because we didn't vote, well, at least, I didn't vote for him for his whole, to change everything into MAGA and all this, okay? I voted for him because I didn't want any part of the other side. And again, I wanted the freedom to proclaim Christ. And I also think, of course, the economy will do much better. And when the economy flourishes, there's far more giving available to missions and things like that. We talked about all this before, but there are a lot of people that don't even think about those things, which is why I tried to say, even from the pulpit, understand where I'm coming from. You might disagree, but understand that when I'm talking about policies, and when I think about voting and all this, and I think about the best gospel candidate, I'm thinking beyond just the here and now.
Yeah.
But the funds to be able to now, a lot of so-called Christians sit in the pew and they really don't give much of anything, if anything, so they don't think like that.
Yeah.
But I guarantee if you are a dedicated, giver, tither to the Lord, you think about those things. And so you're thinking, man, I want the person in there where there's going to be the most, profitable money available to give to the things of the Lord.
Yeah. No, that's good. And I mean, look, Greenland might become part of the United States, so missions,
more land.
Right. Missions
send
to
a missionary.
Greenland. Yeah. And I still believe, Snerdley will remember, but we here at the Hammer Podcast are considering a interplanetary missions agency.
Yes, we did talk about that.
Okay, because Trump said that we will be the first to get to Mars. So if people are at Mars, you know what people need?
The gospel.
The gospel. So we're
Take
going
the gospel.
That's right.
To the heavens. I love it.
That's right.
I love it. But yeah, so look, we've got a lot to do. We can't just, this isn't, Jesus is not based on my eschatological view. This is not
the lesser.
This is not the
view.
Revelation 20 kingdom. Okay, not to be mistaken for that. So we've got a lot of work to do. But
there is, and I think you look back at, when Christians pull out of the public square.
Yeah,
I think you get what we've had.
Absolutely.
For the past decade or 2 decades.
That was Francis Schaeffer's argument.
And I mean, because this brings us to our next point. There's a lot of Christians out there that really believe in their heart of hearts, and they're convicted by it, and I think, born-again believers.
Sure.
But they adamantly believe that pastors shouldn't have anything to say, right, about politics or culture from the pulpit. And one of the things that I think in the coming days is that these battles that have been fought and won, right, are only the beginning.
Yeah.
Because the left and the progressive woke mind virus, it's a cancer. It doesn't stop, right? It will keep coming unless we stay engaged and our voices continue to be heard in just the everyday spheres of life that we are in.
Yeah, that's right. And as I said before, right, there needs to be a balance, I think, right? I don't want to be, Robert Jeffress, where I'm tied into. And by the way, I don't question his salvation. I think he's a brother in Christ.
Yeah.
First Baptist Dallas there.
Right.
But I, to be so tied in, like with the Republican Party or with President Trump, where you can't ever call a spade if he does or says something wrong. We don't want to be like that.
Right.
Or like I said, to act like, Trump is saved or something like that. We don't want to be like that. But on the other hand, to say absolutely nothing and to act as if, we can't say anything that might be considered political is just foolish, because most things really aren't political.
Yeah.
Now, if a pastor gets up and starts preaches a whole sermon on tariffs, that's probably going a little too far. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is I think, we have to have a balance. And I want to say something here, and I want to be careful how I say it, because I'm not saying it because there might be 1 or 2, 3 people listening to this, and I've had conversations with them, and they're going to say he was throwing egg on my face in the Hammer Podcast. I'm not going to do that. If I got egg to throw, I'll do it right up close and personal to you, one-on-one.
Yeah,
okay, I'm not going to come to the pulpit, preach about you. I'm not going to come to the Hammer Podcast, preach about you. That's wrong. That's sinful. Okay. But I just want to give a different perspective. I just want to share from a shepherd's heart. Okay. There are times where we'll have people that will say something like this. If I say anything remotely that might be considered political, it might not even be political, but they might take it as political.
Well, let's just say the gender thing. The gender thing shouldn't be political. Homosexuality versus true marriage shouldn't be political. Our culture's made it political.
Right.
So then when we speak about it as God speaks about it, it's true.
Yeah, no, those things are certainly not,
But those are the things that we're like, oh, well, that's...
some, but even when I say things like, that the vaccine isn't a vaccine, actually, and it shouldn't be mandated, masks are actually not efficacious. If you want to wear them, if you want to wear 10 of them, fine. But when you make that's being hold on. No, I don't consider that being political. But here's what I want to say. I just want that person who might think that, the 2 or 3 hammerheads out there listening that maybe think that way. Sometimes people will come up and they'll say something like, well, I don't think you should even mention that at all. And again, if you're mentioning this every week, it's a problem.
It's different. We're not talking about that.
But if you say, hey, I don't think you should mention that at all because, that might turn some people off. If they're visiting the church, they might not ever come back. Okay, I grant you that it is possible that could happen. However, have you ever thought about the opposite effect?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever thought about how many people might visit a church and they actually hear someone preaching the word of God, and then as they're applying that word in one way or another to how we live,
right,
they bring in something like that, something that some people might consider political. Have you ever considered how many of them that actually appeals to?
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, I'm going to come back to this church because this person actually says this. This person shows me how the Bible relates to what's going on right here, and the Bible is relevant.
Yeah.
Right? See, they just act like it's just a deterrent to people.
Mm-hmm.
And they have no idea. And I say this because you and I know, because when we go through the paperwork, we go through membership with people, there have been, quite a few folks over the years that have come and joined here, and they will voice the fact that they do it because, hey, you don't mind calling a spade.
Right.
And they'll even say things like, we're tired of going, places where people won't talk about anything that's going on.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if the Bible isn't relevant or doesn't apply to everyday life.
Yeah.
So my point is you need to think about it the other way, okay? Now, here's another thing to consider. I'm called to be a shepherd.
Yes.
Okay? We're supposed to shepherd the sheep that are God's.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What did Paul say in Acts chapter 20? They're, shepherd, take care of, shepherd. The word used there is shepherd, right? The sheep, right, that they're my sheep purchased by my blood.
Right.
Okay? So
Jesus
you don't
is
own them,
sheep.
I
That's
own
right.
them. And the point is you better be a responsible shepherd. Now, I want you to think about this. As a shepherd, when I get up and preach, my main concern in preaching, the subjects I'm main concerned, the hearers,
Mm-hmm.
okay, are the sheep
Mm-hmm.
that God has put me over. In other words, my main concern aren't visitors coming in.
Yeah.
I'm not, that's the whole thing about, right, the whole purpose-driven
Seeker-sensitive,
thing,
yeah,
right, where
that's
we're
right.
going to do a church service so that we appeal to the people that, might visit and all this. That's not scriptural.
Yeah.
Okay. My concern is the edification, right? The Ephesians 4,
Right. Equipping of
11,
the saints. Yep.
and continue down through the end of the chapter, really, right? The whole equipping the saints. That's my concern. So should somebody show up and they get offended because I said something that they might think is political and don't come back, I can't control that. Should somebody show up and I say something that they might think is political and they think it's about time,
Yeah.
And by the way, we've talked about this before. This is why, and a lot of Baptistic folks don't get it. They get upset at Doug Wilson, right? And they're all upset because, he's got all these people following him now, and especially these younger guys and all this.
Yeah.
Well, they do it precisely because he takes on these issues.
Yeah.
They're tired of what they would call wimpy Christianity.
Yeah. Beta males.
Right. They've had enough of it.
Yeah.
They want to see a man of God boldly, humbly, but boldly, through the Spirit, proclaim the truth and not apologize for it.
Yeah.
That's actually appealing to God's people.
Mm-hmm.
See? So, but again, I'm just saying, as a shepherd, my main concern are my sheep, not the people that might wonder. And another thing, one thing I've learned about preaching, and you learn it very early on, you might as well just retire and don't even think about preaching if your aim is to never offend anyone.
Amen.
Because
amen. That's a true statement.
Well, it is. I mean, I've had pastors before say, I used to preach on abortion. I don't really touch abortion much anymore because I know I've got some people in my congregation, I'm sure, that they've had abortions. Okay, so by the same reason, you're never going to preach on adultery, on fornication,
divorce,
right? Like that doesn't even make sense. No, so you can't ever get to a place where you're like, walking on eggs. You can't preach on eggshells up there in the pulpit.
Yeah.
Now, again, you have to be careful, and there may be things sometimes you speak out of turn, and you speak based on your flesh instead of the spirit. It's not in your manuscript, but you say it, and then you just maybe in the future have to say, went too far there, shouldn't have said that, please forgive me, whatever, right? But anyway, that's, as a shepherd, that's who you're to be concerned about, are your people.
Yeah. No, that's good. Well, and I mean, that it really is, at its core, is the whole discussion between who is Sunday morning for, right?
Right.
Is it for lost people to come in and get saved, as the seeker model would say, so they cater the whole service towards a visitor, a lost person, or is it for the sheep to be fed so that they can go out and do the evangelism, which would have exponential impact?
Yeah, that's right. So, and again, no one's perfect, right? So we're still learning, trying to figure out how to, shepherd and all of that. But, I do speak from somebody with a couple of decades of experience now. And, I've also, raised 2 young men now.
Yeah.
And I hope anybody that would observe them would look and say, well, yeah, if that guy in the pulpit is the same guy at home, that's what I would expect him to rear.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, my point just being that we have to not just look at things one way. We have to take into consideration everything. And we also have to be careful when you hear somebody preach to their congregation. Now, if somebody's preaching heresy, that's obvious, right?
Yeah, right.
But when you hear somebody preach to their congregation, you need to be careful to be quick to judge certain things they bring up or don't bring up, applications they make and all that, because they're shepherds. They're supposed to know their sheep.
Right.
What makes you so prideful to think that you know that congregation and those sheep better than that shepherd does?
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah. And look, and I'm talking to myself as much as anybody, because early in my ministry, listen to different pastors, this and that, and what are they? Well, you don't know their context and exactly. Again, heresy's heresy.
Period.
But you say, well, why would you
story.
bring that up? Why would you tackle that? I mean, I wouldn't say that, or they shouldn't have said that, or they should have said it this way, right? But again, you don't know their sheep. They're responsible for their sheep. You don't know exactly what's going on in that body.
Yeah. And you don't have to give an account to the creator of the universe for how they shepherded.
That's right.
They do.
That's right. And even if you come to a church, right, and maybe you become a member and you've been there a year, you've been there 2, you don't know what's happened the last decade at that church.
Yeah.
So you don't know exactly maybe what the pastor, why he's bringing up a certain thing or just throwing something in there. So instead of being prideful and thinking you know better than them, maybe just kind of chill out, be humble.
Yeah.
And, and if there's a real problem, if you hear a pastor saying something that's unbiblical, then, go to them in love.
Yeah. It's good. I mean, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. All right, Snerdley's got me queued up for the Inquisition. So
yes, I feel the seat getting hotter, but it feels good today.
All right. I'm
so cold out there.
Turn it on to the volt. And, okay, wow. All right, I've got here.
The volt, is it frozen?
It was, all
right.
I'm glad the hot seat was de-thawing.
Yeah, well, that's.
Yeah. All right, so I have here.
Wait a minute. That looks like a 3x5 card.
In my formerly East Coast wing-stained fingers.
Nice.
The Inquisition.
Blue cheese or
always blue cheese.
Ranch?
No, always blue cheese.
Yeah, I like blue cheese too.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Not really a ranch guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Who is the person in 1 Peter 5:13 who is called she who is at Babylon?
All right,
My
hold on,
Bible.
I'm opening up right now.
All right.
And I think the lighting, it's either my eyesight, which we know it can't be.
No, it's never. No, Brad
But
Rock's eyes are.
That's right. The eyes are perfect.
perfect.
It's got to be the lighting here. Let me. Okay.
I'll finish the question as you look up the
1
verse.
Peter 5:13.
Yes.
Okay.
Who is called she who is at Babylon? My Bible is the English Standard Version. So.
Okay. So I'm going to read this. She who is in Babylon, chosen together with you, sends your greetings.
Well, what translation are you reading there?
So does my son Mark. This is the NASB, New American Standard.
All right, so our Hammerhead was reading out of the ESV.
Yeah.
Who says,
yeah,
who is at Babylon?
Right. So, this is who is in Babylon. So really
Same.
not a whole lot different. But here's the thing. Here's what I think is going on here. I think this is the lady who went on the tirade at the cathedral yesterday against
in the synagogue of Satan.
Yeah. So
oh
no,
wow,
no.
that was crazy.
That
on
was
a
crazy,
side
wasn't
note,
it?
that was wild.
Yeah, we're not going to go there, but I guess we just did. Okay, no. So the answer to this 1 Peter 5:13, Babylon is often used in Scripture to speak of false teaching, and here I would say it refers to a church in Rome. And if you read Revelation, what's that, 17, 18? I think chapter 17, 18 of Revelation has a lot to say about Babylon.
Yeah.
But it speaks of ultimately false teaching, and of course that stems all the way from the picture of Babylon in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
So, but Babylon is used a lot to refer to false teaching, and God uses it in the book of Revelation as he speaks of the spiritual fornication of his people.
Yeah, because they're worshiping other gods.
No. Well, they're just, yes, but along with the worship of other gods, sometimes they're worshiping other gods, but they're ultimately worshiping that which is not true. They're listening to in that case the Antichrist, as I take it, and his whole, if the Antichrist had a denomination, we might call it, Babylon.
His denomination
instead of
was
Baptists,
Babylon.
right? They would be or Presbyterians or Methodists, right? They
How does
would
this
be,
tie into the Babylon Bee?
Could be, but they would be, the Babylonians, spiritually speaking. So again, 1 Peter 5:13, it refers to a church in Rome there.
That's heretical or teaching false doctrine.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way Peter uses it there, I don't take it that church necessarily is at that point in time teaching anything false. But, he's just saying, hey, they greet you. It's the end of the book, and he's just simply trying to give some greetings at the end of the book. But later, I'm saying, we see Babylon developed in the book of Revelation into those who are really the false, the beast, the false prophet, and the Antichrist. Their whole religious system can be summed up by Babylon. There.
As the denomination of Satan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good way to put it,
Yeah, that's good. All right, friends. Well, that's going to bring us to a close. And you'll have to wait a long 168 hours, but we will be back. See you on the other side.